Hello friends, welcome to video 27 in our series Principles of Equity Investing. Now, time value concept is a very important concept which is very simple but very powerful. And we had seen in one of our earlier videos that for valuation of shares, there are methods which use time value concept and they are based on the potential cash flow from that investment. So, we are going to see in today's video the fundamentals about time value and how to actually use this time value in evaluating or in valuation of shares is something that I'm going to see in the next video, video 28. So what is the agenda for this video? The agenda is understand the concept of time value. Amount and value are different. We will talk about it. Secondly, we will refresh what we learned in the school days, compounding versus simple interest, and when and how frequently can compounding be done. That is also something we will discuss. Example of how future values and present values are calculated. So we'll take some examples for us to get familiar with it in a better way. Then what is the link between value of an investment and future cash flows? So there again we will take one example and which all domains can the concept of time value be used. So the purpose of this video, while it is a prelude to the time value based and cash flow based valuation of shares, nonetheless I am getting into a little more detail because time value as an idea is extremely useful in many other applications also, as we're going to see, and therefore you being familiar with this idea is going to be useful anyway. I am also going to make one file available in the description section of the video, which has various tables of time value, which you can feel free to download, but more about it as we go along. Let us understand the concept of time value, and as I mentioned in the previous slide, amount and value are two different concepts and we should not mix them together. So let us take an example to understand the difference between amount and value. Let us say that your friend takes a friendly loan of ₹1,00,000 from you today and promises a repayment in 1 year's time. Now, the amount that he has taken from you and the amount that he will return back to you is the same, which is exactly 1 lakh. So no complaints. But let's now think about value part. When the friend returns 1 lakh back to you after 1 year, is the value of that 1 lakh being returned the same as the value of 1 lakh that you gave today? No. Obviously, if you had not given the money to your friend, you could have deposited in a bank and even earned certain amount of interest on it. So you have actually compromised from a value perspective. I'm not provoking you. Please continue to help your friends. But this is an awareness which is quite often lost. And the people that we help may tom-tom saying that, well, I had taken the money from so and so, but I just returned it absolutely on dot and without any kind of compromise. But the compromise which has already happened is in value terms. So the amount may look the same, but its value hinges on time of cash flow. When is the cash flow taking place? Today or after 1 year or after 3 years, as the case may be. So that way value is a very subjective concept. There are a lot of emotions involved in a value also. For example, you may be very attached to a house, maybe because you prospered there. So you are quite attached and the value of that house for you is very high. And even if somebody is willing to give some 20% more price than what is prevailing in the market, you may not be willing to sell because value is very subjective and no money can compensate for it. However, in the discussion today, I am not looking at all the dimensions of value. I am only restricting to the time dimension of value because otherwise that discussion can become, very endless and esoteric. So very quickly, we will review the concept of compounding of interest versus simple interest. So simple interest is in a scheme of deposit where the bank credits to your savings account. Then it's up to you what you do with it. You may allow it to lie idle there or you may withdraw it and use it somewhere. That's up to you. But the bank loses control on that money. On the other hand, when you seek compounding of interest, we don't take that interest into our savings bank account, but rather leave it under the complete control of the bank, and therefore we get entitled to interest on interest, not only interest on capital but also on interest. And not only our capital works hard, but interest also starts earning interest, and therefore I'm saying that interest also starts working hard. Now the question is it relevant for shares? Absolutely. I think this concept of compounding is relevant for every investing opportunity. Why only shares? And I will in fact create a video separately to explain how we can even discover how much is the return that we have generated in a particular investment. And in fact, we should do that even in the context of shares. And that is where the compounding aspect also becomes very important. So all the more important in case of shares because dividend forms a very small part of the return. It is essentially the capital appreciation, and capital appreciation has to take into account the compounding effects. Otherwise, we will pat ourselves back, though we don't deserve, for a seemingly high rate of return. But compounding makes us more grounded, and it actually tells us the really effective return. And I'm also going to make a separate video on that for people to get into those details separately. But we should keep in mind that compounding is important in every investment, particularly those investments where return in the form of dividend or rent is the smaller part and it is the capital appreciation which is the bigger part. That's where compounding is very, very important. So just to give you a quick flavor of the power of compounding, let us say that you invest a lakh of rupees for a period of 25 years and the rate of return is in a range of 6% to 20%. You will see that if you are able to invest only at 6% in 25 years, even after taking into account the compounding effect, the amount will grow only to 4,29,000. But if you are able to generate a 20% return, then it can grow to 95 lakhs 39,000. So for a little over 3 times return, you actually generate 19 times more wealth over a 25-year period. So basically, this is the power of compounding because from the second year, the return is calculated not only on the principal originally, but also the return which was loaded in the first year. Now the question would arise, which are these areas where 17 or 20% return is possible? In fact, we are discussing equity investing only, and all of us know that such a return is perfectly possible in equity markets. So how to calculate compounding of interest? We learned this formula right in our school days. Future value is equal to present value multiplied by 1 plus r raised to n. So it is the exponential value, it is not a multiplication. Why? Because the very effect of compounding is cyclical. So that 1 plus r needs to multiply itself again and again and again and again. How many times? N times. So 1 plus r is multiplying by 1 plus r, again by 1 plus r, again by 1 plus r, depending on how many n's exist. Now, this compounding can be done annually, half yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and even daily. So it's up to us, but I would say that typically we should be aware about a quarterly compounded return at the least. In my own investment analysis, I calculate daily compounded just to be very, very realistic. So because shares should be growing time to time, they don't grow in slabs of 1 year, they actually grow every day. So therefore, in my own calculation, I take daily compounding as a basis. And in fact, I'm also going to create a separate video in terms of how do you monitor your investments, and if you populate them, is there a way whereby you can actually get the return calculated on each of your investment? And I will create a separate video on that too. So watch this space. So all that we need to ensure is that R and N are consistent. If you are using R on an annual basis, for example, if you are expressing interest on an annual basis, then N also has to be expressed in years. If you are calculating the interest rate on half yearly basis, then N should be expressed in terms of units of half years. Same thing for quarter, same thing for monthly. So you can see here in this table that the annual return has been adjusted suitably. So annual return of 6% has been divided by 2 to get half yearly return, divided by 4 to get quarterly return, divided by 12 to get monthly return. And then you are free to use whichever one depending on how you want to evaluate the return on any investment. But as I said, quarterly at the minimum, if possible on a daily basis. So let us see how a table can be used. So here is an annual table. I have already given this table to you, for your reference in the description section. If you were to click there on the link, you can actually download a table. So there you will find monthly value tables, annual future value tables. So how do we read this table? We can actually see that this table is constructed with the base of 1 rupee. So let us take an example, 10% column and 10-month row. We see, 10-year row, then it is 2.5937 is the value that we see here. How do we read this? If we are to invest 1 rupee for a period of 10 years at the rate of 10%, annually compounded, then that 1 rupee should grow to 2.5937. Now, where can we use this table? If suppose a company has issued a bond to you, in which they don't tell you the rate of return, but all that they tell you is the amount to be invested now and the amount of maturity. You need to discover that rate of return which is involved. Otherwise, the product can be very easily missold to you. And from that, or for deriving that, you can actually use this table to find out approximately in which percentage it is fitting there. Now we have a monthly table. So you can see here monthly future values. Again, this table is available. I have just created an abstract of that and brought here. Here we have months. So again, how do we use this table? Let us say you are keeping a deposit with a bank for a period of 12 months and it is to be monthly compounded. Then by looking at this table, you can find out if the rate of return is 10%, then how much would your deposit grow to at the end of 12 months. So we can see here that the factor which is available for 10% and 12 months is 1.1047. So 1 rupee will become 1.1047 after 12 months at 10% interest monthly compounded. So if that is the case, how much would a 10,000 deposit become? We can easily multiply 10,000 with 1.1047. We can use similar logic for calculating the recurring deposits also, or the maturity amount of recurring deposits. Because finally, what are recurring deposits? Recurring deposits are nothing else but a series of deposits. So if you are depositing 10,000 every month, then the first deposit in the series of recurring deposits of 10,000 rupees will grow by 10,000 multiplied by 1.1047. The second one will grow to the extent of 1.0956. The third one to the extent of 10865. And the last deposit that you will keep, assuming that your recurring deposit scheme runs for 12 months, the last deposit that you keep at the beginning of 12 months would grow at the end of the 12 months to 1.0083 multiplied by 10,000. So 10,000 is common. If you simply add these factors together and multiply ones by 10,000, you can easily find out what is the maturity value of recurring deposit. And when you have an Excel file like this, which I have provided to you, simply highlight all those cells. It will give you a sum total at the right hand bottom corner and use that to multiply the amount that you are keeping in a recurring deposit. You can just cross check whether what the bank is charging you is absolutely right, or rather, I'm sorry, what the bank is paying you is absolutely right. Now, who uses these tables? Of course, the bankers. They will use it for recurring deposit maturity. They will use it for cumulative deposits. And as I mentioned, download a file which has the tables, and you can easily use it for checking whether the maturity amount is correct or not. Also, you can use that file and create half yearly or quarterly tables. All that you need to do is just replicate that table, replicate that sheet into another sheet, and adjust the formula for the interest. So right now if it is monthly and therefore I have divided by 12, if you are constructing on a quarterly basis, you need to divide by 4 and substitute the word month by the word quarter. Then you have a quarterly table ready. So you can do it easily as per your own requirements also. You can even do it on a daily basis if you want. So that freedom you have. Now let us solve the friendly loan problem. What is that friendly loan problem? Your friend takes the sum of rupees 1 lakh from you today with a promise to return it in 3 years. And you can't say no to him. So now how much is your opportunity loss? Let us say you could deposit at 7%. And we have already seen that on an annual compounding basis, 7% for 3-year factor is 1.2250. So you can say that this 1 lakh rupees will grow to 1,22,500 at the end of 3 years. And how much is your loss? The loss naturally is 22,500. So you are right. However, one limitation of this 22,500 is that this 22,500 is expressed in terms of the loss as can be seen at the end of 3 years. But quite often when we take decisions, the value is expressed not at the end of 3 years, but we would prefer to express it in today's terms. And therefore, instead of calculating the future value from present value, quite often the table which is used is the other way. Calculate present value from a future value. So what we could do is the 1 lakh that your friend is going to return back to us after so many years, that 1 lakh can be converted into its today's value and then can be compared with 1 lakh that you gave today, and therefore it can give you the loss in today's terms. Now this I am leaving it back with you as a quiz. You can definitely check the Excel file and try and answer this question. But before that, before you try that, some bit of a theoretical background is required. So we already saw this formula that future value can be arrived at as equal to present value multiplied by 1 plus r raised to n. Now we can flip the formula to say that present value therefore must be equal to future value divided by 1 plus r raised to n. Now all that we have done is just play around with the same equation. So how do I get this second equation? Look at the first equation, present value multiplied by 1 plus r raised to n. I push that multiplied by 1 plus r raised to n to the other side. When it goes to the other side of future value gets divided by 1 plus r raised to n. And then again I have just changed the sides. So present value on the left hand side, future value on the right hand side. And the only difference that we see in the formula naturally is that in one case it's multiplication, the other case it's division. Naturally so, because the direction of movement is different. When we move from present to future, the amount grows in the future. When we move from a future amount or a future value to today's value, the amount decreases. And for that again, we can decide the frequency of compounding annually, half yearly. That really depends on the mutual contract of the two parties. Again, not to repeat too much, but R and N have to be mutually consistent, as we had also seen earlier in the context of future value calculation. So let us remind ourselves about the problem that we are trying to solve. The problem is that we have given 1 lakh rupees to a friend. The friend returns back to us after 3 years. Our opportunity is to invest at 7%, and therefore we are trying to assess the loss in value as of today. Because as we discussed, the easiest thing for anybody to do is to look at the value or loss or gain as of today. In fact, the whole share trading happens, as we discussed in one of the previous slides, or even investing happens for the reason that people think that the buyer thinks that value is greater than price and the seller thinks that value is less than price. So everybody is trying to assess value all the time, and for assessing value we need to take the frame of reference of today, not sometime in the future. And therefore what we are trying to do is We are trying to solve this problem of a friendly loan by looking at the loss in today's terms, and that will provide us a clue in terms of the equity valuation down the line in a later video. But for now, how much is the loss in today's terms? The present value of the amount returned is 1 lakh into 0.8163. Where do we get this 0.8163? We can get that in 7% column and 3-year row. So since the friend is going to return after 3 years, the value today is 81,630, and therefore the effective loss in value today is 18,370. So this is something we need to understand, that when we bring forth the cash flows which are going to happen sometime in the future and convert them into today's value is going to be much less than the denominated amount of cash flow. So this is a very fundamental aspect that I wanted to emphasize through this. We will take one more example in the context of bill discounting. So let us say that you are in business and you have supplied goods to a large company worth 1 crore rupees, and the negotiated credit period is 90 days. Now what happens is that when you go to a bank and say that, I have to wait for 90 days, can you give me the money today itself? And my customer is a top class A grade customer, so you can definitely rely on the quality of my supply and the quality of my credit and give the money today. Let us say that the bill amount is 1 crore and bill is due 3 months later, as we just said. Let us say that the rate of interest negotiated with the bank is 10%. Then how much would the bank pay you? Again, the answer can be found by looking at 10% column and 3-month row, and we get 0.9754 there, and therefore the bank will pay us 97,54,000. Now, is the bank playing any mischief? Not at all. 1 crore is what they are going to realize after 3 months by collecting the bill. So when they have to give this money today to you, they have to discount it for 90 days, and that's what they have done. They have to discount it for 3 months. The discounted value of the future cash flow of 1 crore is 97,54,000, which is what the bank has given to you. Now let us see how this principle can be used in valuing an asset, and that is going to provide us a clue for valuation of shares, which I'm going to cover in the next video. So can we extend the logic to evaluate an investment? Of course, yes. Let us say that you are investing in a security which has the following cash flows. So you are going to be paid 1,000 rupees every year for 4 years, and at the end of 5 years, you will be paid 1,000 rupees towards interest and 10,000 rupees towards principal. So the face value of the security is 10,000 rupees, let's say. So how do we evaluate this investment? Now for evaluating the investment, we have to always decide our expectation. And how do we do it? Now I'll just give you a simple example. Let us say that there is a bank manager, and the bank manager is associated with a branch which has 2 localities close by. One locality has employees of large companies. Another locality is typically of traders, business persons, small manufacturers, medium manufacturers. Now, the question is, if the bank and the branch are celebrating a deposit week, deposit mobilization week, and they have to focus their energy on the most productive set of customers, whom would they prefer to focus their energy on? Would they focus their energy on the employed people with large corporations, or would they focus their energy on self-employed people, professionals, business persons, traders? Who would they focus their energy on? What's your guess? Now, when there is a deposit mobilization that is going on, the deposit rate, even if during this mobilization period, a slightly higher rate of interest is being offered, even then, that rate of interest must be attractive to either set of these customers. Now, typically you will realize that people who are on their own, business people, traders, manufacturers, they always avail of credit facility from banks, and they are used to paying interest rate of 10% to 15%. Now, if you are offering a deposit rate which is 8% instead of the conventional 7% for a particular period, that will not still excite these people who are borrowing from banks, because they would say my opportunity cost is 10% up. So why would I keep a deposit with you at 8%? On the other hand, people who are employed, who are not in business, and they are used to depositing money at 6.5, 6.75, 7% rate of interest. If they suddenly find 8% as an offer, they will be quite excited about it. So the branch manager must focus their maximum energy on the employee class of customers rather than the traders and manufacturers, because the expectations are different, and therefore the expectations of two different classes of people can be quite different. Let us say that there are two sets of individuals or two groups or even two individuals. One has an 8% expectation, the other has 11% expectation. Now what we need to check is whether this particular investment is attractive. As we were discussing earlier, someone who thinks that the value is more than price is going to go and buy. Somebody who thinks that the price is more exciting than value is going to go and sell. So let us look at the next slide in terms of understanding that logic. So before we go to that, let's quickly look at the table, the annual present value table with 8% and 11% factors which have been highlighted just for your benefit. All those numbers are available in the Excel file also. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to pick up exactly these 5 factors. Now why I have taken 5? Because the cash flows are going to happen over 5 years. For the first 4 years, only the interest. In the 5th year, both the interest as well as the face value of security. So I need to have a look at the entire 5-year cash flow before I take a decision. So let us value this security. Here you will see that I have in this table put the amount of cash flows year by year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1000, 1000, 1000, 1000, and the last one 11,000, and I have picked up exactly those PV factors that you have seen on the previous table as they apply for 8%. So the present value is calculated, and the sum total of the present values is actually must be the value of the security for us. Think about what I'm saying. The present value of each cash flow collectively must be the value of the security, because the security is going to give us those 5 cash flows. If I arrive at the today's value, I should not add the amounts, because if I simply add the amount, then I will be misled, because the total of the amounts is 15,000. But is that my value today? No, the value of that at 8% is only 10,798.60. You can peacefully check this calculation using the tables available with you and the multiplication. So basically, for somebody who has an 8% expectation, the value is 10,798.60. But let us say if somebody has an 11% expectation, then what happens is the amount of cash flow remains the same, but the PV factor has changed here to 0.9009 and so on to 0.5935, and the present value, collective value of the cash flows which are going to happen with this security is 9,630.90. So you can see that the same security has a different value for two different sets of people, and that is because one element is time, but more important is the period over which it has happened, and also the rate of return expectation. So we can see that, suppose, let's say for example, if the prevailing price is 9,900, then who will find it very attractive? At 9,900, who will lap it up? The person with 8% expectation will find tremendous value, because the value for that person is 10,798, prevailing price is 9,900. So that person will go and buy in the market. What will happen to the other person who has an 11% expectation? That person with 11% expectation will not find it attractive, because value to that person is only 9630.90, and the prevailing price is 9,900. So the difference in expectation causes differences in value judgment about a security. So therefore, when we go into using the time value principle in valuing shares, each of us will have different expectations, and depending on our expectations, we may find some shares to be attractive and some shares are not, and what we find attractive, somebody else may not find it attractive enough, because everybody has a different expectation. And in fact, because of this very differences of expectation and the pattern of cash flows over a period of time, the security value keeps on changing for different individuals, and that's the very reason why trading happens in the market. So I hope you got a very good idea about the principle involved in valuing a security. We are now going to use the same principle in valuing equity share also. What I will also do is I will repeat this slide in my next video so that it acts as a good refresher for people who may have a bit of a time gap between seeing this video and the next. Now, which are the applications where time value is used? EMI. For EMI calculation, time value is extensively used. For calculating the recurring deposit maturity amounts as well as cumulative deposit maturity amounts, it's extensively used. In valuation of bonds and shares, of course. In option valuation, some of you must have heard about futures and options. So in option valuation models also, time value is factored. And assessment of investments by companies in new projects. When companies are undertaking investments in setting up a new plant, a factory, new hotel, new airport, they're all evaluating investments using time value principle, because that's at the crux of investment evaluation. So I hope you got value from this discussion. If you have, do subscribe to the channel, press the like button for this video, offer your comments, share the video with others, and suggest topics also. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your patronage.